What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to Sportskeeda MMA News. Nate Diaz gives a golden shower to the UFC Performance Institute and Dustin Poirier responds. Kamaru Usman says Jorge Masvidal is still in the shadow realm. Daniel Cormier is itching to see Nate Diaz fight Iron Michael Chandler. Strickland lashes out at UFC veteran Matt Mitrione for defending Pat Barry over recent grooming allegations. And Endeavor CFO Jason Lublin addresses the UFC fighter pay issue. All this and more on today's edition of Sportskeeda MMA News. If you see any of your favorite fighters mentioned in today's video, make sure to blast that like button. Let's get started. What happens when you don't book Nate Diaz a fight and refuse to let him go? Well, he urinates right outside your state-of-the-art facility. Recently, Nate Diaz has had it with the UFC's lack of action in booking him a worthy opponent. Diaz has not been active since losing to Leon Edwards last year at UFC 263, and he's only won a single fight in the last 6 years, but that doesn't mean Diaz hasn't been trying and failing to be more active. Diaz took to Twitter to air out his grievances with the UFC. Taking a on the UFC PI. I could do this because I get paid more than all you guys and they won't cut me. I meant headquarters or wherever Dana's office is. Dustin Poirier, who called out Diaz 1,000 times, offered up his 2 cents. A real man would have there. Then Diaz continued his Twitter spree by calling out Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and former champion Charles Oliveira. These guys and here's a for Venom Gear 2. As if insulting UFC fight fits wasn't enough, then Diaz winked at top 5 welterweight Gilbert Burns and said, "Shut up, go to sleep, and your last fight 2 pumped up amateurs. Don't worry about Burns, he's stupid as which prompted Burns to say this, "Pull up at Nate Diaz." Note to self, don't keep Nate Diaz from beating up grown men for money. The 21-13 Diaz already left his mark on the game by defeating legend Donald Cerrone and submitting Conor McGregor, but now he yearns for a legacy fight and some overdue respect. What do you think Uncle Dana has to say about all this? Leave a comment down below and you might be featured in tomorrow's video. What happens if you tell the pound-for-pound king that he can't do something? He reminds you why he's the best and does it anyway. That's how Kamaru Usman feels when people say he is foolish for wanting to box Canelo Alvarez. Usman has been pining for a crossover into boxing to test himself against the greatest in another combat sport and maybe get a fat payday. Just like the 57-2 Canelo, who's been the face of boxing for the last 2 years. Canelo dared to be great in yet another weight class but fell short against the bigger and defensively sounder Dimitri Bivol last Saturday, but his stock only rose in defeat. Usman was a recent guest on the Pat McAfee show where he reminded fans that doubting him is a fool's errand at best, and he's been there many times in his career. Here's what Usman had to say. "You would think I train on how to punch people's faces. I put in work. I put in work each and every day, whether it's boxing or kickboxing. We put in the time. With that time, I'm confident in my ability. Listen, when I said, hey, Jorge Masvidal, you said you wanted a full camp, that you were going to be able to take me out with a full camp. I said, hey, this time I'm going to knock your head to the moon and I'm going to do it. Everyone said Masvidal's the best boxer in MMA. I sent him to the shadow realm. I think he's still up there." I mean, you can't doubt a man who says ice-cold things like that with a smile. You also can't doubt the man who's undefeated in the UFC and is currently threatening Anderson Silva's all-time win streak of 16. The 20-1 Usman is coming off his 5th successful title defense against Colby Covington at UFC 268. His next target is a man he defeated only in his 2nd fight in the octagon, Leon Edwards. What do you think? Do you believe Kamaru Usman has a shot against Canelo Alvarez? Who is Nate Diaz fighting next, you ask? Well, Daniel Cormier has the answer. Recently, Daniel Cormier addressed the ongoing hunt for Nate Diaz's next opponent and suggested that the self-dubbed most exciting lightweight on the planet might be a perfect choice. Diaz himself already thinks so. After tweeting out July 30th, 170 pounds a few days ago, Diaz followed up with his desire to fight Chandler. Chandler was all for it, and Cormier has the inside scoop as to why it's the next fight to make. Here's what Cormier had to say on his YouTube channel.
"I think Nate Diaz has finally got it right. Nate Diaz has finally gotten the target that gives him the best chance for success. You know who it is? It's my boy Michael Chandler. I mean, after what Chandler did to Tony Ferguson, I still look at the matchup, and within that matchup, I see places for Nathan Diaz to find success. Why? We saw Tony Ferguson for the first time in many fights land something significant on someone, knocking my boy Chandler down. I know Michael Chandler is a ton of bricks. He's a monster for the weight class. But if Diaz can go up to 170, be tough enough and durable enough to go 25 minutes with Leon Edwards and lose pretty much the whole fight and then hurt him at the end in the way that he did, he can fight a 155-pounder at 170. He's not depleting himself so much that everything Mike throws at him will hurt him.
A sensible analysis from the man who's earned UFC gold in multiple weight classes. The 23-7 Michael Chandler has an iron will after snapping his 2-fight skid by disconnecting Tony Ferguson from reality at UFC 274. If this fight with Nate doesn't materialize, Chandler can always fight a certain Irishman who knows a thing or two about front kicks. Do you think Michael Chandler is truly interested in Nate Diaz? You just knew as soon as Pat Barry opened his mouth that Sean Strickland would have something to say about it. Recently, Pat Barry was a guest on the MMA Hour where he addressed allegations made by Strickland about him grooming his fiancée and former strawweight champ Rose Namajunas. Barry told Helwani that these allegations come from a misreported interview and that everyone, including Strickland, ran with it as fact. Strickland has since responded to Barry on Twitter. He said this: "Here's the thing, 99% of what I say is usually wrong. This is not that time. Rose Namajunas, Aspen Lad, like my post if you need help. I'll treat Pat Barry and Jim West like they treat minors. Without consent, although it won't be behind closed doors. Lamau." Then Strickland took aim at UFC alum Matt Mitrione, who allegedly defended his friend Pat Barry by saying he waited until Namajunas was 18 years old to begin their relationship. Strickland was not happy about this and said this:
"I'm going to address what you said about Pat Barry waiting until she was 18. Do you understand what grooming means? And mind you, I don't give a about Rose. I don't give a about you. I don't give a about Pat. I'm just stating the facts that Rose was groomed by Pat Barry, and you defending him, you loser. Why don't we go check what's on your laptop, you can?"
Venomous words from the man who actually likes Pat Barry? Do you think Sean Strickland is onto something here? While you're still here, subscribe to Sportskeeda MMA and hit that bell. And last but not least, the topic of UFC fighter pay is so divisive that even the CFO of the holding company of the UFC had something to say about it. Recently, Endeavor CFO Jason Lublin was part of an earnings call that detailed profits for the company's sports properties, including the UFC. Lublin entertained a question about concerns over how the UFC pays their fighters in comparison to other major sports leagues. Here's what Lublin had to say. "We agree that there's been a lot of comparisons drawn to team sports such as the NFL and NBA, and we actually don't think that's the right comparison to the UFC. We think the right comparison is to other individual sports such as the PGA Tour, F1, NASCAR, and ATP. If you look at those athletes and what they're paid as a relative percentage of revenue for those leagues, it's right in line where the UFC is with their athlete compensation." Lublin went on to cite compound annual growth rates for fighter compensation as having risen by 26% since 2005, a deceiving statistic from the time when the UFC hadn't yet signed a deal with a major broadcast company. Maybe they should get Jake Paul on the next earnings call so he can convince them to pay Francis Ngannou more than $600,000 for a title shot. What do you think about Lublin's comments? That about does it for Sportskeeda MMA news. Here are some of the best comments from today. Sounds like the Amber Heard is Poirier's go-to move. El Coco has officially lost his mind. Chandler beat Dan Hooker and a washed-up Tony. If it goes to 4 or 5, Nate all day. If you like this video, please like, comment, and share. Your comments could be featured in the next Sportskeeda MMA news video. We always deliver daily content, so make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out on anything going on in the MMA world. For updates, quotes, and exclusive interviews from all your favorite fighters, follow Sportskeeda MMA on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for tuning in.